Hello, everybody. Welcome to reInvent 2023. I am Mike Nearing. I am a solution architecture leader here at AWS, and I have the pleasure of introducing Justin Burdett, the CEO of Moby, to the stage. We're here to talk about building the next generation 5G telecom network with AWS. So we've only got 20 minutes, so let's get into it. And Justin, over to you.
Thanks, Mike. Aloha kako. Thanks everyone for being here. As Mike said, I'm Justin Burdett from Moby. When we were doing the math earlier, I actually realized I joined Moby 6 years ago today. So it's been crazy 6 years. Appreciate everyone at Moby having me, keeping me, not getting rid of me. So one of the things that we wanted to share with you guys today is the work we've done over these past 6 years, but especially accelerated over the past year or so, to go from basically a typical traditional telecom stack to a modern cloud-native stack. And when we launched in 2005 in Hawaii as a regional wireless carrier, our goal was to try to fix some of the communications challenges that existed in the local market there. And as a small regional wireless carrier, I joke sometimes that it's easy for us to stay humble. We're tiny. But it's also sometimes kind of strange when someone tells us, by the way, you guys were the first wireless carrier in the world to do something. It's like, we're so small, that's not always easy. But one of the things that has changed as we have gotten to where we are today with a cloud-native stack, cloud-native core, cloud-native eSIM stack, is it actually has become somewhat easy for us to be the first wireless carrier in the world to go from having what's typically a weeks-long process to do SIM input-output file loading to it being literally nearly instantaneous and fully API-based. That's just one part of the story we wanted to share today. And it's certainly the part we're quite excited about, but it was a long journey to get to from where we were to here. And that leads us into our next slide here. Not too long after I joined Moby, we had kind of realized our legacy core had no upgrade path from where we were to 5G, to supporting IMS, VoLTE, now VoNR. And we were certainly stuck with being able to accomplish and build the things that we really wanted to build. And eSIM was still in a nascent stage at that point. It wasn't there yet. It wasn't really supported in consumer devices, but we knew it was coming. And other things, other technologies we knew were coming that we wanted to be able to support, but couldn't because the stack that we were stuck in didn't have that flexibility, didn't have those capabilities. To get from there to where we are now took a lot of help. But the amazing thing about the cloud, really, is for the folks that were already cloud native or integrated into the cloud, it made our life much easier because once we adopted that mindset, once we decided to go from the legacy monolithic closed stack to the cloud native stack, integrating with those folks, partnering with those folks, became oftentimes as easy as clicking a button rather than a 6-month project that took an insane amount of energy and effort. These are just a few of the folks we've relied on and depended on to get from there to here. But what differentiates everyone here, and particularly the two folks we're going to be talking about, is that they had already gone all in on the cloud. They had already decided that's where they wanted to be, that's where they wanted to go. And had figured out how to get there. Once we decided that's where we wanted to go and partnered with these folks, it was a lot easier for us as well. One of the partners that made this possible is WG2, and they were actually recently acquired by Cisco. WG2 built the first cloud-native wireless core, and that was really the linchpin for us going from the old way of thinking about how to build a wireless carrier to where we are now. And to go to a fully programmable wireless core that's entirely API-based changed a lot of the ways that we had to think about being a wireless carrier. So our BSS and OSS stack, all of those pieces became a lot more agile as a result. Whether they were built to be agile or not, they became a lot more agile at that point. And for us, being stuck in the old way of thinking, once we broke out of that, we were able to gain some pretty significant insights into how to rethink most of our business processes to really become mobile first, eSIM first. And those insights were pretty crucial to where we are today and where we're excited to be going. And actually some folks from RipSim are here in the audience with us. They were the other big piece of that puzzle for us to get from thinking about telecom in an old way. A really good concrete example is a physical SIM card was, I think, very illustrative of that old way of thinking. Now, iPhone 14, iPhone 15, many other devices are eSIM only. And for many carriers around the world, they're still catching up to that way of thinking. Because of AWS, because of WG2, because of RipSim, it's now our native way of thinking as well. So, AWS has really been the meeting place for us, for the partners I mentioned earlier, for WG2 and RipSim. Once a telecom partner, telecom vendor, I think, decides that AWS is where they want to build a product or service or offer a product or service, they sort of start speaking in AWS. The same is true for us. We're now speaking in AWS, so there's no longer a translation layer kind of needed there to get from where we were to where we want to be. So, the two partners I mentioned, powered by AWS, and that brings me to bringing back the guy to my right here. And it's funny, one of the things Michael usually does for us, one of his superpowers, I believe, is simplifying things down, dumbing things down. I would say, he wouldn't say that, but I would say that, for us to understand when it comes to thinking about modern technologies, cloud-native ecosystems. Today he's actually, I think, going to do a little bit of the opposite and give you guys some of the nuance, the details. So I guess without any further ado, Mike?
Thanks, Justin.
And thank you so much for everything you've done to get us to where we are.
Likewise, thank you for
it was a journey.
Yeah,
I know.
It continues too.
I'm going to hang out down here and I'll come back up.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you. As Justin said, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into some of the intricacies of the technologies that are around a very simple seeming thing like a plastic SIM card and moving that over to a digital journey. So for a carrier like Mobi to be able to acquire and define an eSIM and just get it into their systems can be a very time-consuming process. What they have to do is work with some of the SIM vendors, define the profile. There's a bunch of stuff that happens behind the scenes, but that can take up to a couple of months. So it's a very time-consuming, resource-intensive annual process today. So what does that process look like? This is what a typical eSIM journey looks like. There's 12 steps, which is funny when you think about it. But there's a lot of manual things that are done in these processes. So when we took a step back and looked at the journey that Mobi was going on, we said, well, the electronic SIM or eSIM is a digital product. Why are we using the same processes, methods, and procedures for a physical product with a digital product? So we really started to redefine and think about it differently. So really quickly on that top line, you'll see some of the steps like you need to make the request for an eSIM profile. That needs to be built, it needs to be tested, and that's a back and forth between the SIM vendor and the carrier, in this case Mobi. That in and of itself can take a month or longer. Once the testing has passed, then you have to go and certify the profile. So you make sure that profile is ready for production. But that's not it. It's not like you just click go and you get these profiles. Then you have to actually order the eSIM profile. So we're down to the second line now, where they provide more information to the vendor. The vendor then goes and actually creates the eSIMs. And there's a couple things that happen there. The first is there are some what's called output files that are generated. And those output files have to be transferred over to the carrier systems and then, again, manually loaded into those systems. And one example is the core of the network. That's one of them, is SIM-OTA, the OSS, BSS. There's a variety of systems these files get transferred into. It also kicks off, in some instances, a physical manufacturing process. So a SIM card today comes in a plastic card, like a credit card size. And what's happened with the ecosystem today is that same process has been applied to an electronic SIM, but a QR code is printed out. Then those get shipped to the carrier's stores, and there's inventory management and all that that needs to be done. So there's a bunch of impact in terms of the environment, things along those lines. There are some other processes that happen, like entitlements, things like that. We're not going to get into that today. But really, the crux of it is when we stepped back and took a look at it, we realized we could eliminate some of these steps and really, really reduce the time for these processes and procedures. So the first is the eSIM generation. Well, why would we have to manually transfer files when we could just use an API? So this is the beauty of what RipSim has created, is you're able to create an eSIM profile by API, but not only by API. When you're initially defining your eSIM profile, they have a wizard you can click through. It asks you a bunch of questions, and at the end of it, you get a profile that's defined, and they have automatic testing of that profile to certify that it's going to work properly when it's deployed. So right there, you've already saved a month more during that process. So we've digitized the manual physical process. Then, for the eSIM generation, when you have to provide those files for the production eSIMs, again, it's another API call. So all you do is upload the information you need, the system goes and generates those SIMs. The output files is another API call out to the WG2 core and the other systems that Mobi has. So there's no manual files, no manual processes. It's all just click and go. And so you save literally weeks upon weeks of work there. On the bottom row there is where the eSIM gets deployed to the device itself. So when you're switching a carrier or a device today, you put that little pin in, pull out your SIM card, put it in another device. Not so easy when you have a digital SIM. So to get an eSIM deployed onto a phone, that's where the QR code comes in. There's a unique activation code that's inside that QR code. But what Mobi's chosen to do is to use their Mobi app on the device. So you download the app, you sign up for your plan, it automatically reaches out, gets the eSIM, configures the device, and you're up and running. It's pretty cool and amazing what they've been able to do. So what does that look like at the end of the day? This is what the new process looks like. You've eliminated 5 steps, and you're literally down to 7. But Mobi's move to the cloud not only is about optimizing processes like this and saving time, there are several other benefits that come along with this. Things like increased scalability and flexibility. So in the telecom industry, Black Friday is a huge event. Telecoms always have people staring at monitors, making sure operations are running smoothly. It's an event that's planned for months in advance, and really it's worked up through the whole year. Well, with the AWS infrastructure, you can scale up your resources as required and then scale them down. you also have increased resiliency. So when you deploy, you can deploy across different, what we call availability zones and regions, which gives you redundant infrastructure and hardware that your workloads are working on, so you're ensured that resiliency in case there's any kind of unexpected event. Sustainability is another very important thing that AWS and Moby share. When you think about the impact of all these plastic cards that are out in the world today, moving to a digital solution like this, you not only save the plastic, but with Moby moving to the cloud, they don't have to deploy their own hardware, and that's more power, heating, all these things. They're utilizing AWS's infrastructure for this. So it's there's a lot that comes along with the move to the cloud. Looking ahead, this also opens a lot of pathways forward for Moby because they're moving to a digital first solution. So they are able now to offer innovative solutions, and with that, I'd like to actually bring Justin back up and talk a little bit about some of the things, ask a couple of questions. So you mentioned that it's been a journey that you've had to go on, and when we were talking previously, you had said to me there were some myths that we had to debunk. Could you just tell us a bit about those myths and your journey down that road?
Yeah, it's actually one of the things I think in the telecom industry, we have quite a few myths about the public cloud that permeate, and certainly have more so in the past especially, that there are security concerns, or in reality the cost and the time savings aren't as significant as they are if you're just deploying your own metal. I think going into it, we doubted some of those myths as it was, but certainly the last year of going from bare metal and legacy stacks to today where we are on an entirely cloud native stack, I can say with certainty those are no longer myths to us. We, being able to go from partnering with a company, literally ink on or digital ink at least on a contract, to having interconnect live because of the cloud in a week or so. It would be even faster if they didn't still have some manual processes behind the scenes on the financial or commercial side, but the actual deployment, the technological piece of it, it becomes minutes as opposed to months as it typically would have been. So those are some of the myths that I think we have quite successfully in our minds at least debunked now.
Thank you for that. It's really interesting to hear it from the voice of the customer, because we talk a lot about these things and the benefits of the cloud, but really when our customers realize those benefits, it's music to our ears, so to speak. I kind of want to leave off on one last question. So you've gone through this digital journey, you're now cloud native, you're going, you've got a different way of thinking. What does the future hold for Moby, and what does that look like?
It's interesting how often people ask us that, one, which is fascinating because we're just happy to get to where we are today. But I think one of the really exciting things about what's next, I think on this journey, this adventure that you've helped us be on and get on successfully, is now that, we're utilizing a wireless core that was built from the beginning to effectively deploy APIs to every end user if that's what they want. Now that we have an eSIM stack that allows us to provision and activate a subscriber nearly instantaneously, the really exciting part for us now is what do our customers do with that? It's not really what we're going to build now. We've done our part, I hope. It's now, and I guess you guys have probably been feeling this now for 20 years, right? Since AWS launched, you guys still get to do exciting things, of course, but then it's what do your customers, what do the AWS partners and those guys go and then do with that? And that's really where we're at now, is to see, certainly individuals, families, typical Moby customer, but also IoT OEMs or partners, private wireless. What are the folks that now can deploy Moby eSIMs do with it? And we don't know, but we're pretty excited to see.
That's excellent. I'm really looking forward to how that pans out and see in the future. Thank you, Justin. So everybody, to see a demo of the things we're talking about, and you can get a free mobile subscription for the duration of the event. Please come to the Moby booth. It's in the infrastructure zone, booth number 114. We have a whole crew of people happy to help answer your questions. Justin and I will be there after the talk. It's just straight down the hallway towards the end. You see the infrastructure side. So with that, I'd like to say thank you to Justin, and thank you to everybody for listening, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Mahalo, everyone.